Today we're going to take a look at order of operations. If you remember from middle school, a lot of you learned PEMDAS as your way to remember order of operations. First we do parentheses, then we go back through and do exponents, then we do multiplication and division together, working from left to right of the expression, and finally we do addition and subtraction together, again working from left to right in the expression. So let's look at some examples and see how this works. Here's our first example. So if we go through our checklist, there are no parentheses, there are no exponents, so that brings us to multiplication and division, and we have division here. So we need to start by doing 10 divided by 5, which is 2. So we would then have 6 minus 2. 6 minus 2 then gives us 4. So the answer to this problem is 4. On our next example, we can again go through our checklist in our head. We have no parentheses, but we do have an exponent here. So an exponent of 2 is called squaring, which means taking 4 times itself. So 4 times 4 would give us 16, which means that this is going to become 3 times 6 minus 16 divided by 2. So that's what we have at this point. And then we need to continue working down our list. So next we have multiplication and division, and it says we should work from left to right. So as I look at this, I do see that I have some multiplication right away in 3 times 6, which gives me 18. And then minus, and then I come to another set of division. 16 divided by 2 would give me 8. So the only thing that I have remaining then is this subtraction problem, and 18 minus 8 would give me 10. So the answer to this question is 10. Now on to example 3. In example 3, I look and I see that I have no parentheses, but I do see that I have an exponent here. 2 squared, or 2 to the second power, would mean 2 times 2, which is 4. So this would then start out by becoming 20 over 4. And then I still have the rest. So plus 4, and then times 7. Now this here that looks like a fraction bar, 20 over 4, as we stated in yesterday's lesson, when we have the fraction, that actually means division. So our next step in our process is to do any addition or any division or multiplication. So I have division in 20 divided by 4, which is going to give us 5. And then if I move over, I have plus, and 4 times 7, multiplication at this level as well, gives me 28. It's an ugly 8. And so then in our last step here, we're going to do our addition, and 5 plus 28 would give us 33. Moving on to our next set of examples. Here on this one, I look and I go down my sheet, parentheses. I don't have any parentheses. but I see that I have several exponents here. So I need to evaluate each of those exponents. If you wanted to do this by hand, for example, our first one here, 3 to the 4th power would mean 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So when we're dealing with 3 to the 4th power, then that means that 3 to the 4th power would mean the same as 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And so you could plug that into your calculator. But you can also use a button on your calculator to help you do exponents. So we can also put into our calculator just 3 to the 4th power. And to do that on your calculator, you are going to start by pressing 3, and then you want to find a button on your calculator that looks like the roof of a house. And that is going to be located on the very left side of your calculator. So 3, and then this means to the power of, and then we can type in 4. And when you do that, your calculator should be telling you 81. So that means that I can start to simplify this problem that we're working on here. So 3 to the 4th power, we said, becomes 81. Then I have minus 7 to the 2nd power. So again, if you use your calculator, you can put in 7 to the 2nd power, or 7 squared, and you should get 49. And then we have this fraction bar here. And on the bottom, I have 2 to the 5th power. Again, you can use that same button on your calculator, and you should be getting 32. So if you didn't try that on your calculator, I would recommend that you pause the video and do that now and make sure that you can get that. As we move on down our list, after exponents, we have multiplication and division. However, in this case, I'm being asked to divide because of this division bar here. But I can't divide until I figure out what is going on top here. What is 81 minus 49? So I can't divide until I know what number the top of this fraction is equal to. So if you calculate 81 minus 49, you should get 32, which means that this is going to simplify to be 32 over 32. And we know that any number divided by itself is equal to 1. So our solution to this question is positive 1. Moving on to the next example, example number 5 here. On 5, for the first time since we've started this, we see that we do have some grouping symbols. We have parentheses. We have 2 sets of them. So we want to evaluate what's inside of the parentheses first. So if I start with this first set of parentheses, 13 minus 7 is going to give me 6. So I'm going to have 15, and the parenthesis simplifies to be 6. So when we have 15 written outside and that parenthesis with 6, that's going to indicate at the next step that we need to multiply. And then we have divided by, and then in my second set of parentheses, I have 8 minus 5, which is 3. So moving on down our list of order of operations, the next step is exponents. This problem does not involve any exponents. So then I get to the next step, which is multiplication and division, and it says to move from left to right. So moving left to right, the first thing I come to is the multiplication problem of 15 times 6, which gives us 90. So I have 90 then, divided by 3. And so that's all we have left is 90 divided by 3. So that has to be our last step. And if you divide that in your head or on your calculator, you should get 30. Moving on, we have just a few more examples to work through. On this one here, again, I'm going to start with parentheses. That's always my first step in order of operations. So in my first set of parentheses, I have 5 plus 3. So that's going to give me 8. And then divided by, and I'm trying to work my way to the second set of parentheses here. So everything else at this point is going to stay the same. And then I get to this set of parentheses, and I notice that I have a couple of things going on in here. I have the exponent, and I also have subtraction. So we have to follow the same order of operations inside of the parentheses as we follow for the whole problem. So exponents come before subtraction in the list, so we're going to do the exponent first. So 5 to the second power, you can use your calculator, or 5 squared means 5 times 5, which is 25. And then minus 3. So then I'm ready to complete this parenthesis here by calculating 25 minus 3, which will give us 22. So our problem at this point then has become 8 divided by 2, and then plus 22. So now I need to continue on down my list of order of operations. So we did the parentheses. The next step says exponents. We do not have any exponents remaining in the problem. So then we come to multiplication and division. So we have division here. 8 divided by 2 would give us 4. So this becomes 4 plus 22. And so that's all we have left is 4 plus 22, which gives us 26. Moving on to example number 7. In question number 7, we're going to start at the top of the list again. So we look for parentheses. We have 2 different sets of parentheses. So here's my first set. I see that I have 9 minus 7, which is going to give me 2. So I end up with 8 over 4 times 2. And then when I move over here, then I have another set of parentheses. So plus, and then I have 13 divided by 2. So this is where I maybe run into a little bit of an issue because 13 is not evenly divisible by 2. And it doesn't have to be. So if you use your calculator to do 13 divided by 2, it's going to give you a decimal response of 6.5. It is okay to use decimals. We're going to see decimals throughout the course of the year in here. So it is okay to use those when you're in here. So that gives us 6.5 then for the remainder of this line of work. So 6.5, not down there. So we have 6.5. So now we need to continue on. So the next step in order of operations says exponents. We do not have any exponents here. So then I need to do any multiplication or division, and it says to work from left to right. So this whole part here, 8 over 4 times 2, is division. But in order for me to divide, I have to know what am I dividing by here. So my first step here is going to be 4 times 2, which does in fact give us 8. So we'll have 8 over 8. And then plus, and we'll still have our 6.5 over here. So then 8 divided by 8, anything divided by itself is in fact going to be 1. So we end up with 1 plus 6.5. And you can either do that in your head or use your calculator. But when you add 1 plus 6.5, you should get a final answer of 7.5. All right, 2 more examples and we're done. So if you look at this one, you're going to see that you have 2 different types of grouping symbols. We have your normal parenthesis, and then we have these square parentheses or brackets. Those are just a different type of grouping symbol, but they all classify as a parenthesis in terms of order of operations. So when I'm going through this and I go to do my work here, I see that I have this parenthesis. Once I jump inside the square parenthesis or the bracket, my order of operations list starts over. So then I'm going to this. Parentheses come first. So I'm going to start by evaluating 16 minus 13, which gives us 3. So at this point we have 12 plus, and then we have our 3, and then our bracket is still going to be here because we haven't evaluated that. So 18 minus 5, but we said that we could evaluate this and that this becomes 3. So this is where we're at this point. So now we're going to look inside the parentheses still, and I see that I have subtraction or multiplication. According to our order of operations list, multiplication comes first. So I'm going to evaluate next 5 times 3, which gives us 15. So my problem now is going to look like 12 plus 3. And then we still have our bracket here. And then I have 18 minus 15. So then I only have one step remaining inside of the parenthesis, which is this subtraction here. And 18 minus 15 is going to give us 3. So we end up with 12 plus 3. And then in that bracket, we've now simplified it down to just 3 as well. Now, just like if this was a set of parentheses, this 3 outside of the bracket is indicating that I'm multiplying 3 times 3. So I have addition or multiplication to do next. According to my order of operations list, multiplication comes before addition, and 3 times 3 is 9. So this becomes 12 plus 9. So in my final step then, I need to evaluate 12 plus 9, which is in fact 21. Final problem of today's video. So as I look at this one, again, I have a situation where I have 2 sets of grouping symbols. So I have my big bracket, so I'm going to jump inside of there, and then order of operations starts again. So I'm going to start with this set of parentheses here where I see 13 minus 7. 13 minus 7 is going to give me 6. So I have 2, and then my bracket. This has become a 6. And notice that I have this exponent of 2 here that belongs to whatever's in the bracket. So this is going to become 6 to the power of 2, or 6 squared, and then divided by 3. So we have that. So inside of my bracket, I have exponent and division. According to our rules, exponents come before division. So 6 squared, or 6 to the second power, means 6 times 6, which is 36. So this is now simplified to 36 divided by 3. And that means that the only thing I have left to do in my grouping symbol is 36 divided by 3, which gives us 12. So this becomes 2 times 12. And 2 times 12 is 24. So that wraps up your video on order of operations. Hopefully you took your notes, and tomorrow in class we will work through some activities with this.